The composition of your photo are the ways that the elements in the photo are arranged. So there are certain orders to make sure that your photo looks appealing to the human eye. The king of the composition rules would be the rule of thirds. This is the most popular rule. Everybody has heard of the rule of thirds some point in their photography career. The human eye tends to attract to photos that are divided up into thirds. So if this frame was divided into thirds, I would have to be standing over here. This basically means that this frame is divided into 3 separate parts, and your element should be in one of them, preferably the right-hand side or the left-hand side, not in the middle. Dead center is considered dead boring. The second rule is to define your subject and fill your frame. When you're looking in your viewfinder, if you see distracting objects, you may shoot them, but when you go to edit them in Photoshop, you should crop them out. Filling the frame does not mean to crowd your frame, because that would be breaking the rule of leaving space. You do not want to overfill the frame. You do still want to leave space. You want to make sure that there's no distracting objects. Now that ties into defining your subject. If you in your photo have too many things, and if you look at it and you cannot say in one word what your subject is, then your object is not defined and your frame is not filled. This next rule is pretty self-explanatory. It's to not cut off your subject at the limb. You would not want to chop off your cat's tail or your dog's ear or someone's feet. There are certain spots of an object that you should cut off at and parts that you should just leave it there. The next rule is leading lines. Leading lines lets your audience, your viewer, follow the image all the way through. So one may use parallel lines going through. An example would be a road, and at the end of the road, that could be your subject, but you're using the road to let them see that. It's almost like leading the way to the prize. Let their eyes follow through the photo to what you want them to see. The next rule would be to look for symmetry and patterns. While shooting with symmetry and lines, you need to make sure that you do have a subject at the end, something for the eyes to focus on, but the symmetry just makes the photo appear neater and clean. So if you're shooting a road and there's lamp posts on either side following down the road, that would be an example of lines and symmetry. But make sure you have something further down the road to guide the eyes to. This next rule is something that I've described before. This sort of has to do with defining your subject and filling the frame. This rule ties into every single photo that you should take. Dead center equals dead boring. This mainly applies to people, but it can apply to other nature photography as well. The eyes find a photo more appealing when it's not direct center. Direct center makes the photo seem boring and plain. You would like it to be off to the side. In order to create a pleasing composition for your photo, you should add patterns and textures. This is different than the symmetry of patterns. This is textures. So the bark on a tree, the leaves on a flower, being able to see those lines detailed will create texture for your photo, and it's appealing to the eye. That is all for this video, and I hope that you've learned how to apply the composition guidelines of photography into your photos. Thank you.